Welcome to Let's Talk Business, where Square business owners share their stories, biggest lessons they learned, and their plans for the future. I'm Elon Peso, small business evangelist at Square and a former business owner. Today, we're talking to Dina Rosenberg from Amityville Apothecary here, Amityville, New York. Thank you so much for having me here, Dina.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for making the visit and having me on. I'm so excited to talk business, and small business is one of my favorite things to talk about.
Absolutely. Excited to get to share your story. And with that, let's talk business.
All right.
Yeah. So first, can you give us a quick introduction?
Sure. So like Elon said, my name is Dina Rosenberg. I have been in business here in Amityville at Amityville Apothecary for the past almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years this Small Business Saturday, which is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. We started with a very small brick-and-mortar shop in the front of the store, really tiny, small handful of products. And then over a period of the past almost 6 years, we have added onto the storefront. Thankfully, the architecture of the building that we're in has allowed us to expand both to the second floor, to the back end store, most recently going next door and creating a separate bookstore that's still under the Amityville Apothecary brands, but it's called the Athenaeum Amityville Apothecary, which is the biggest metaphysical bookstore, I think, possibly in America. I don't know, because a lot of bookstores, there aren't that many small bookstores, mom and pop owns. And I know like the bigger, like Barnes and Nobles, they don't really carry a ton of the titles that we do. So I guess I should have told everybody that we are a metaphysical lifestyle brand, brick and mortar where we started. We do our e-commerce site, of course, through Square. We also have social selling on both Instagram and TikTok. So that's the three sort of channels that we're working with at any particular point in time.
Incredible. Yeah, I'd love to hear more how you got started and why this place.
So conveniently, I live around the corner. And I had been let go from my government job. I was running the local government. And we had a change of administration. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do next. I had previously owned a business in which I did birthday parties for little girls, princess parties. It's a lot of fun. But when I had gotten let go from a job that was so meaningful to me, I found myself turning to yoga, meditation, crystals, things like that to sort of calm my spirit, calm my nervous system. Things that I sort of really liked when I was a little girl that I went back to. So when the space here became available and it was very, very affordable at the time, I figured, why not try something? The opportunity cost isn't that great, where if I take a chance and it doesn't work, I'll still be okay. I'm not going to lose my shirt or anything. And I have a business partner. Her name is Danielle DC. She and I are lifelong friends. We literally met when we were 19 years old. So we did it together, and here we still are, moving and grooving.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that journey, you said you've evolved a little bit. You've done a lot of the social selling. Can you tell me about that evolution?
Yeah, well, we sort of had to. A lot of it was by necessity. I think the most beneficial thing that I always tell people in terms of being a small business owner is the ability to pivot and to move quickly. And, larger corporations with hundreds and hundreds of people working for them with layers of management don't have the ability to adapt to market conditions like small businesses do. So we started the shop in the Small Business Saturday of 2018. That gave us pretty much a little bit like a year and a couple of months before COVID-19 hit. March of 2020, we were shut. Now, thankfully, because we already were so ingrained with the Square ecosystem, we had already been starting our e-commerce website. We launched online right before holiday of 2019. So thankfully, we weren't in the position of a lot of other small businesses in the beginning of 2020 that were rushing to get online once the in-store was closed down. We already had that infrastructure and it was already up, which was great. So that was sort of the first set of infrastructure that we had ready to go when we had to make that COVID-19 pivot like everybody did. Now, it's really funny because I recall having a conversation with my dad in March of 2020 where he said, I'm going to do my dad's Long Island accent. What are you going to do? My typical dad. What are you going to do? How long, how are you going to pay your bills? Like the whole conversation. And I mentioned to him, there's Instagram, we can go live. And he said, well, how much does that cost you? And I said, well, it doesn't cost anything. We could just go live. So I'll probably do it like a couple times a week. We'll schedule it. And he said, well, if it's free, you should do it every day. So my business partner, Danielle, and I made a commitment every single day during COVID, from the end of March till like the middle of June. We went live every single day at 8:30 p.m. Every single day. Now, it doesn't mean we're selling. We didn't even start selling. We just went live every single day because what else were we doing? Everybody was home. Everybody was in the house, unless like you were one of like the health worker heroes or the supermarket heroes, but we're not any of those things. So we went live every day and we just talked about stuff. We talked about our anxiety. We talked about how nervous we were about what was going on. We pulled tarot cards. We talked about astrology. We talked about meditation techniques. We talked about so many different things. And the more and more we did this, what I noticed with that consistency is the more people were watching every single night. And so our little shop that started with just a small local reach, all of a sudden started having people watching from California, watching from North Dakota, watching from Alaska, all over the country, and sometimes the world. And that's when we said, what, maybe we'll do a live sale. And we'll start, we can't open the store, but we could show you what you have. And at the time, nobody knew anything. So I didn't know if we'd be able to even come out of our houses. I don't know why I thought that, but I didn't think I could leave my house ever. So I brought like tons of the inventory to my home and I had it all on my kitchen counter. So I would just start showing and selling what I had in my house. And that's how our Friday night live sale was born, that we still do to this day, pretty much every single Friday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah. I love that it started out of a place of, well, what else are we going to do?
Right.
And then you shifted it and evolved it into what it is now. I'd love to dive into those beginning phases where you started just talking and then you shifted into selling. What was that sort of transition like? Where did you have any resources to learn how to do any of this? What was that experimentation like?
Oh, so it's so funny because nothing in your life is wasted experience, right? Everything you do, everything you've done that comes before where you are now really informs your future. And I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, but for a very short period of time, I sold LuLaRoe. Okay. And LuLaRoe is only sold really in social settings, either in-home parties or via Facebook group. So I already had the experience of selling that product.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, would I wear the leggings today? No, I would not. No judgment. However, that experience that I never thought I was going to, activate ever again was sort of the groundwork for those live sales. However, I think if I wasn't already so like enmeshed in the Square universe of tools, small business tools, I would have had a problem because once you sell, how do you get paid? Right. So that was nothing that ever was difficult for me because I already had Square invoices. So we just started, and we still do, heavily rely on Square invoices.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any like experimentation and trying different methods and different tactics, whether from the tool side, but just your own tactics of trying different ways to sell, of using social media, trying at different times or?
Yeah. I don't know why, but the 8:30 p.m. was always the time that we did. And I think the thinking was, it's a great East Coast time, but it's still after work on the West Coast. So the idea was if you worked from home on the West Coast, it would hit you at about like 5:30. So even like Mountain and Central, like you're still, so I thought it was like the earliest we can start for the West Coasters and still not egregiously late for the East Coasters. So that's where the 8:30 p.m. time came from.
Yeah.
Right. When we first started, we would go live for like an hour. Now our Friday Night Live sales are 3 hours long. It's a marathon, although I know a lot of live sellers that go for like 8 hours, 7 hours. Granted, they don't have a store. They're just online. So for me, I think I'd probably fall over. But but we go for 3 hours. In the beginning, we didn't have like fine print. We allowed people like to trade during the live sale. So sometimes there were some mistakes where people claimed something, but then they swapped, but we didn't track it well. So a lot of the little fine details of how to manage the sale successfully has been developed since 2020 to today. And now I think we're pretty much like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. So I have two questions. We'll start with the first one of, can you talk us through what a live sale is like? And then when you're done with that, I'll ask the other, which is more of those learnings.
Sure. So the way the live sale works is, first of all, you have to incentivize people to come in the live sale. What's your unique selling proposition? Our unique selling proposition is that we offer 15% off. The reason why we offer 15% off, because in theory, we're selling new inventory that hasn't been entered into our inventory system. So the 15% discount is the discount of our time, not having to input items into inventory. Because a lot of times for us, we're selling crystals. There are a lot of individual pieces. To get that into inventory, to get that on the website, it's very labor intensive, photos, weighing, all the things. So the first off the bat, 15% off because you're saving us time. So that's the incentive. The second incentive is first look at everything. You get to shop out of the boxes before stuff is hitting the shelves, before it's picked over. You get to cherry pick everything, which in the crystal community is sort of a big deal. Okay. So that's 1 and 2. We have to curate the sale. So from Wednesday, Thursday, up through Friday, right before the sale. So for 3 days, we're curating. What are we showing? Of course, it's like a moving target because you also have to have enough allowance to be open to the vibe of the sale, which we're going to talk to because it changes. You have to be open. You can't be so rigid. That's the thing about being a small business. You cannot be rigid. You have to flow. You have to just go with it. So we curate the sale. We have our products. That means everything has to be priced. We need to know what our margins are. We need to have our counts. Some things might be a one-off. Some things I might have 10 of, 15 of, what have you. So we have 3 people on the sale. Myself, my business partner, and then Katie, who works the back half. And what she does is she has these little slips of paper, almost like checks if you were at a restaurant, old fashioned. And she writes down everybody's Instagram handle and all their claims live in real time. So she keeps track of everything. We tell our customers to keep track. A lot of times if they're drinking, you never know. It's Friday night after all. They might miss some things. So we make sure we keep track as well. A lot of times, most of the time, we're reminding people that they claimed for things. We have rules like no putbacks. A claim is a commitment to purchase. We're not as strict as other sellers. We're not going to block you. We're open to communication. If all of a sudden your car breaks down the next day, we're people. We've had life happen to us. We do allow people to use Afterpay. We do require that they spend a minimum of $125 to activate it on the sale because it is a little bit more of a cost that like eats into our profit margin. So that's sort of like the nuts and bolts of everything. So we show a product. We will say, here, I'll do it in real time.
There we go. Yeah.
This beautiful seashell oracle. I will literally open it up. I'll show you the guidebook. It's, beautiful color art. We go through some pictures. This deck I have no idea how much money this deck is, by the way. It's probably... I know it's an independent deck. It's self-published. It's probably in the $40 to $50 range. I'll say I have 10 of those. Once I say the price, the people have to claim Seashell Oracle, and then we start tracking the claim.
And they just do that in the comments?
They do it right in the comments. Cool. And once it's done, they're done. We'll say no more. If it looks like it was a big hit and it's sold out, then we'll try and get more for the store because it's also a good way of testing inventory. Sometimes you're like, you know what? I'm just going to get 4 of these. Maybe the price isn't great. Let me see how it does on the live sale. And if it does well, then you might want to bring it in.
That's a huge way of experimenting in that sense too, and testing out your products with an audience. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Dang it. Yeah. So with that, what have you learned? What have been the biggest takeaways? What has gone horribly wrong that you've learned from?
I mean, it's crystals. I always say like we're not solving medical issues, right? So it's crystals, it's fun stuff. So nothing has really gone horribly wrong. Sometimes, crystals, some of them can be fragile. We've broken things. We've had to refund customers. That happens all the time. I I would say the most important thing is to be flexible. We do allow our customers to write in comments like, hey, do you have any of this particular material? We ask them to give us a price point. We don't want to show people things that like are outside of what they're looking for. That's just normal selling. We're just doing it, on Instagram. So we'll show them a couple things. And usually if one person asks, it's really funny because then somebody else wants it and it becomes like this whole thing. Sometimes you do have to manage personalities. People, especially if they shop with you regularly, I don't really want to use the word entitled, but another word isn't coming to mind. Get entitled to the fact that because they spend so much with you, that even if other people are claiming the item first, you should see them. And that's very delicate because the live sale has to be free for everybody, or else why would anybody want to watch if you're giving people it's sort of like the upper leg?
Yeah.
But you also don't want to insult your very good customers. So for those situations, what we normally do is we do private appointments with our customers. My customers that are big spenders or in the store a lot, that are looking for particular items, they'll give me their wish list. So when I'm out at a trade show, I'll text them or I'll direct message them what I found for them. And they appreciate that level of like personal shopping. So that's sort of the way that we've made good on that. We do have to keep the live sale as fair for everybody as possible.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's definitely a fine balance and fine line between honoring and respecting and treating your loyal customers well, but also respecting the integrity of the event.
Exactly.
Making sure that other people want to come back and become those loyal customers.
Right, and new people too. Yeah. So that's the problem. Like you never know who is on the feed for the first time. Exactly. So you have to make sure it's fun. What we did add is we added giveaways. And I think that really has helped the algorithm of the live sale because it forces a ton of comments. So what we do is say if like we're giving this away, I'll say Seashell Oracle Deck 0, and they'll get the deck for free. So we usually have, between 5 and 6 freebies every single live sale. And that really helps to also keep people watching for a longer period of time because we time them throughout the sale as well.
Now you mentioned the algorithm. I think that's a big thing with social media is how do you get more visible? What can you do in order to do that? What tactics have you learned there?
So what I've learned is twofold. Number one, it's concern yourself with the algorithm, but don't concern yourself with the algorithm because the algorithm changes constantly. It's so funny. I actually just saw somebody from Gary Vaynerchuk's VaynerMedia do a quick piece of content on how this week TikTok views are terrible, Instagram views are terrible, YouTube Shorts are way up, which was a reminder for me to get on YouTube Shorts more. And so that one I could just repurpose. But with that, consistency is the number one thing to fuel the algorithm.
Yeah.
So like I told my mentee, everybody starts at 0. No matter, sure, were there periods of time where it's easier to gain traction, harder, it just moves constantly. And a lot of that we don't know about. A lot of that has to do with macroeconomic forces within their businesses, within the competition, within the industry itself. So we're not privy to that. So consistency and using the tools within each app that the app themselves are pushing. So one of the things that I directed my mentee to do and that we do is we use primarily Reels on Instagram because that's what's pushed right now. If you're sticking with static square posts and you're like, well, I'm not getting any traction because those aren't really being pushed right now. So you have to go with where the different social media tools are pushing and then using multiple tools within their toolbox. So for example, for us, it's Reels, Stories, and Lives. So we use those 3 things.
And they sort of help each other? Like if you were just trying to do the live sales, do you still need to do Reels?
Yes, you do. You have to sort of be a user within Instagram, which is what we're talking about now, because the more interaction you have with your base, the more Instagram says, oh, people like this. So if I know that, a 28-year-old girl that does yoga in San Francisco likes this, we're going to push this content to more of that type of person. Because let's remember that while our goal is to get more eyes on our business, Instagram and the other social media apps' goal is to keep people sticky within the app and not coming off.
Huge. And then you also have to consider the customer's goals as well. So what have you found, or whether it's individual takeaways of what you found specifically for your business or just in general, what strategies have you found in order to get the target customers that you're looking for?
Brutal honesty.
Yeah.
Allowing people to be behind the curtain of your process. While you have to understand the different culture of each social media app you're operating within, I do think across the board, a level of just honesty, integrity, and allowing people to see the real you, the real business, draws them to you. I think that's so important. And then just not being afraid to fail. So trying new content. And then that's a beautiful thing about social media, just like the lifestyle with the idea of selling product and seeing how it tracks in real time. It's the same with social media. You put something out there, you see how it's doing. And if it isn't doing, you don't do any more of that, you do something else. I guess because I'm a little bit older, I'm Gen X. When I first started my business in 2010, Instagram was still pretty new. And prior to that, really to advertise, it was really expensive. Either you were doing print, you were doing like terrestrial radio. I didn't know anybody that could afford television. So if you think about those olden days of advertising, right? You would be sitting with somebody that was an account exec and they would come up with creative for you, or you'd bounce some creative ideas for yourself. And then you put it out there, you spent a lot of money, you crossed your fingers and you hoped it worked. And if you didn't, you were out the money.
Yeah.
Now you could put messaging out there all the time and it costs you nothing but your time, which of course is valuable, but it's way different than how it used to be.
Yeah, because then it was time and money, and now it's just time and patience and trying to figure out all these steps. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, totally. So talked about what you learned. You talked about some good strategies for getting started. You talked about those benefits of giving discounts in order to save your time and your labor. Has it been worth it overall?
It's definitely been worth it overall. I would say for our business, the live sales probably represent about 30% of our gross sales, which is a big chunk. Right now, I think our Instagram likes it's over 20,000. I don't know if it's 21,000. I really don't concern myself with it, honestly. I look every once in a while. Facebook, I really don't pay enough attention to as I should, or YouTube Shorts, although our podcast is on YouTube, so I really should be on YouTube Shorts more. I think I fired one last night at about midnight. I was like, oh, I got to do this. And then, of course, there's TikTok, which is sort of like the newest channel in the collection of where we sell our products, which I was anti a very long time and then got un-anti very quickly. Even though they are a pain in the tushy. If anybody's from TikTok is watching this, I'm sorry. Bye-bye.
Fair enough.
But they're rough. They're rough. So they are rough sometimes.
Yeah. So you said it's about 30% of your sales. How is the profit like with the discounts and with this extra time and work to do that?
Yeah.
What's the profit like there? Have you seen it also increase your in-store sales, or is it really like online stays online and in person?
No, they all sort of cross unless the person is in California or whatever. However, I just recently had a customer, I think from Minnesota, who found us on the live sale, come in person 2 weeks in a row to take a class here.
Wow.
To do a crystal certification with me. So that's like wild. So it does cross over. We price our items. First, there's a lot going on in pricing, right? Absolutely. First of all, you have to do your competitive analysis and you need to know what the market can bear. You can't just say that like this was blessed by like monks from the Himalayan mountains and charge $1,000. There are people that do that. We're just like not those types of people. So you need to know the reasonable tolerance, like what can you get out of a piece? And so when we're buying, especially on the crystal side, we sort of know what the tolerance is. And if the price per kilo, like we just can't get enough out of it, we just won't buy it even if we love it, which is awful. It's awful, awful, awful when you see material and you know it's great and you just know that like you can't get out of it what you want to get out of it. For us, the hard and fast rule for our store is we do not take anything if we cannot at least get a keystone markup on it.
Meaning?
So keystone means that you're doubling your money. You buy it for 15, you sell it for 30. That is the minimum. A lot of those like those marketplaces, you have to be very careful because not everything is keystone. I've seen products on there where the wholesale price is 22 and the retail price is 30. By the time it sits on your shelf for a couple of weeks, you're in the negative. You're making no money. So for us, we make sure at least keystone on, stuff like books and things like that. And then the crystals, there's room for a little bit more. And that sort of takes the up. Look, do I want to take 15% of something I'm only making keystone on? No, I don't. However, if I'm selling it out of the box, I got it yesterday and it's gone tomorrow, then the 15% is worth it, right? Because I could have money to either buy something else or, pay payroll.
Yeah. Diving into that a little bit, why does something, for those who might not know, why does something that you're holding on to longer cost you more than something you're selling immediately?
Right, because you got to pay rent to live. My inventory has to pay rent to be in the store. So bigger retailers will have a price per square foot figured in to hold their inventory. So how much does it cost per square foot in your rent, your insurance, your electric, your internet, all the things, all the costs that you have to run your store can be dialed down to a cost per square foot. So if this Oracle deck, if I merchandise them, takes a whole square foot, that has a price to be there. And the longer amount of time it sits there without selling down, the more money it costs until eventually the profit is zero because it sat there for too long. So it's something to be aware of as your inventory starts to age. What can you do to move it before it gets to that 0 point? Now, don't ask me what the mathematical formula is for that. I am not a mathematician. I sort of do a lot of like real-time guesstimating, but it's always in the back of my mind.
Yeah. So the priority for you is to move the merchandise, even if it is at a bit of a discount and not quite as high of a profit. In that sense, you're making that profit by being able to move.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
But it also has a psychological, there's something psychological in play as well, because when a customer comes into your shop and they keep saying the same merchandise over and over and over again, it's going to be like musty, dusty, and crusty.
Yeah.
So psychologically, you want to make sure that your shop, if you're in retail brick and mortar, is always looking new. Or if you're in the online space, what's on the front of your page is changing over so that it's always a new experience every time the customer sort of walks in. So re-merchandising, moving stuff around, cross-merchandising is super important.
Huge. Now, you mentioned that other massive benefit of online sales is when you just have the shop, you're limited to this neighborhood. When you're selling socially, you said you could sell all over the country, all over the world. Have you seen that much? Like out of that 30% that is online, how much of that has been local? How much of that has been international? Do the shipping charges cut into that? How do you handle that?
So we don't really do a ton of international business. We do a ton of domestic business. We don't have our website set up for international because quite frankly, like I just did not have the brain power to figure it out. I'm like, this is nuts. And then, since we've started business in 2018, like England left the EU, like all these things like have ramifications to how you ship to different places. And it was too much. So what we do is if a customer looks on our website, and this happens every once in a while, they'll try to purchase through our website and send it internationally and won't accept it. Usually they'll send us an email or a direct message to say, hey, I tried to do this and it's not working. I'll say, oh, that's because we don't accept those types of orders on our website. Please give me your order, what you're looking for, and your full address, and I will get you a shipping quote, and then we will send it to them via invoice. Cool. And then that's just the easy way to do it. Usually I'll give them like a small shipping subsidy, $10, $15. It's quite expensive.
Yes.
It's quite expensive. And certain countries don't get their mail. So I've actually had stuff returned to me months later from foreign countries. Like, it's wild. So
yeah. And even just not local shipping. So across the country.
Yeah. So local shipping, we have a very clunky and convoluted process that could definitely be made easier by using this tools within Square. But in our defense, we have thousands of products, and every one of those would have to be weighed. And some products, I only have one. It's a one-off crystal specimen. And if we're in a race for time, like sometimes we forget to put that shipping weight in. So that's not the way we do it. I'll tell you the way we do it. It's a little bit of a nightmare, and it is not for the faint of heart. But what we do is on our online, we offer free shipping over $125. We also do that for the Friday Night Live sale. Free shipping over $125. Flat rate shipping is $9.50. So anywhere in the United States, if you spend under $125, it's $9.50. It used to be $8, but I don't even know how many postage increases we've lived through since we've been in business from 2018. Like, a lot. I feel like this year alone, it was like twice. So it's been working for us most of the time in postage. Now that the USPS has that new ground product, it's a great product. It's much more affordable than having to ship everything that was over, I think, like 15.9 ounces priority. I'm getting into the real nitty gritty here. It works really well for us, and we're able to, with the cost of the packing materials, the boxes, and all of our little freebies. I love to make mail an experience. By the way, I said I was Gen X. I was a pen pal fanatic. I love mail.
Absolutely.
We want it to be like opening up an amazing birthday present.
I love that.
So it seems to net out.
Yeah.
So that's what we do. It's a lot of manual back and forth. We weigh every single box. We weigh on a scale and input. So it does take some time.
And it's still, with that extra time, with that extra cost, with that free shipping, you still find that it is profitable and worth it.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So moving forward from here, what are your plans for the future? Do you have any other new things you're thinking of trying, expanding, cutting back?
We really do manage our inventory in real time. So, what's selling well, we get more of. What is sort of not getting a lot of customer attention, we will reduce. So we're always keeping our eye on that. Right now, we've been doing a lot of, so what I noticed is that maybe because of the state of the economy, people aren't as apt to walk into a store and spend the money. But if they're scrolling their Instagram or they're scrolling their TikTok and they see something that they like, and they have Apple Pay set up in their phone or PayPal set up in their phone or whatever the Android people use, no hate, and they could just double tap and buy that thing, oh my gosh, they're buying it. So a lot of our attention has really gone to meeting the consumers where they are. I think that's critically important. If people aren't coming into your store and spending money, it is your job as a business owner to figure out how to reach those people, to either get them into the store or sell them where they're buying. And for us right now, that TikTok piece has become very significant. It's precarious because in this country, we don't really know what's going on with TikTok, and it could go kaput at any time. However, the benefit of what we're doing in sales there outweighs the risk. And I think if it goes away, which I don't think will be within the next year anyway, as long as our judicial system takes in this country, we're just going to be there and capitalize on it as long as we can.
Yeah, good points. Now, with that potential uncertainty and precariousness, how do you feel with the way the business has been? Like, how, as a business owner, are you super confident? Are you worried just in general as being a business owner now and having this reliance, or at least partial reliance on social?
I think in the almost 6 years that we've been in business, we have overcome so many curveballs with, global pandemic, having to shut the store down. I'm really not concerned. I think that the way capitalist markets work, if something is taken out of the market, something will quickly sort of like water filling a hole that you dig at the beach. It's just going to be filled in by something else. I think, not having our heads in the sand, staying super aware of micro and macro economic considerations. I watch this or listen to the CNBC, sort of try and hear market reports, try and get the temperature of what's going on. And I like to sort of see what's going on in real time. I love to shop at other places. I like to go in the mall. Are there people in the mall? Are people shopping? Are they grabbing things? I still think people are. I know like the overall market softened. It softened for us in store, but people really still are shopping. Maybe they're just a little bit more discerning with their purchases.
And overall, with all of these new things that you have to learn and you have to do and you have to change, how does that take a toll, or are you fully embracing it?
Listen, I'm living on Cafe Bustelo. If you don't know what that is, it's amazing. It's amazing espresso.
Yep.
I am really, I have fun in my business. And I think what keeps me going is the learning and putting into play the new. So I think I'm not the type of person, if it was the same rote day in and day out, I'd probably be bored and on to the next thing, right? So because of sort of the freneticness of the market and having to try and figure out, okay, we're not doing this now, we're doing this, like it keeps me sort of activated, but it's definitely tiring. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. What do you do to break through that mentally, other than physically with espresso?
I really just remind myself again that like we're not curing diseases here.
Yeah.
It's meant to be fun. That tomorrow is another day. So I just one day at a time. Just take it one day at a time.
Huge.
Yeah,
Love that.
That's all I can do.
Yeah, that's the majority of what I had. Do you have any other learnings or anything else you want to share with other business owners?
Put yourself out there. I see a lot of business owners that are afraid to put themselves out there on social media. They don't know how to get started. I would say my number one piece of advice is to consume the media on the social platforms and look at other businesses like yourself to get inspired, not to copy, but to be inspired, and just start playing in it with the energy of sort of fun and trying. It really isn't that serious. A reel or a TikTok isn't going to make or break your business, but it can potentially expose you to new customers, even if it's one new customer. It's important.
Huge. I love it. Thank you so much again for
my pleasure.
sharing so much, for having me here in the amazing shop, sharing your experiences and your learnings and all people.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Where can people find you online?
So people can find us at Amityville Apothecary in all the places. ShopAmityvilleApothecary.com is our online channel, at Amityville Apothecary, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And we do have a podcast that comes out every other week called Apothecary After Dark. You can find that where podcasts are streamed, and that's how you find us.
Amazing. And the live sales are?
Every Friday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. So if you're interested in selling live, I do have people that I mentee come on to watch sort of the flow. You're more than welcome to check it out.
Amazing. And that's on
Instagram.
Perfect.
On Instagram.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, and
Awesome.
see you in the community.
See ya.